Dive into summer with Vizcaya swimwear. Stylish, comfortable, unforgettable. Make a splash with Vizcaya swimwear. Discover your beauty with Lady Code Cosmetics. Bold colors, flawless finishes. Unleash your confidence with Lady Code. Hello and welcome back to Misrepresented. I'm your host, Lisa Opie, and today's guest is Celia Anzalone Bowers, Mrs. Italy World and the author of You Are a Queen, Transform Your Pain into Power. How are you today, Celia?
I'm wonderful hanging out with you today.
I know, so fun. We did some glam. We did some shopping at PinkApple dresses, and now we're doing a podcast.
This is like full service. I love it so much.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a one-stop shop.
Yes.
So everything you need is right here.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where to start because I got to know you during glam and I am like so captivated by your story. So I think we'll start with where you ended up in pageants. So how did you get to being Mrs. Italy World?
Okay. So the journey began in 2021. I competed in my first pageant in August for Mrs. Tennessee America. I won the Mrs. Tennessee American title.
Your first time?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, I was a nervous wreck. During the onstage question, I got a little bit emotional because we're going to talk about my story. And at that time, I hadn't quite healed yet. And it's all a journey, but I was very much in the early stages of it. But I knew I was supposed to, share my story and my platform and the book that I'd written in 2011. So I think maybe that authenticity shined through my heart, and they just, I don't know, I'm sure other factors also, but and then I competed at Mrs. American, and I placed top 15, and then I took a year off to kind of work on myself because pageantry definitely kind of shines a light on areas that you might want to heal, possibly. For me, anyway, it did. It's played a crucial role in my journey, and took a year off, and then I came back and kind of felt drawn to another system. So I spent some time there, about 2 years, placed first runner-up this past year.
Wow.
But then it was like, I just wanted to, I applied for 3 years to be Mrs. Italy World. And I think the directors, they've just kind of seen my journey kind of like unfold. And, you can't just like start and like compete on the Mrs. World stage, right?
That's the biggest Mrs. International pageant in the world.
Yeah.
It's very competitive. Like, I'm scared to ever set foot on that stage.
It's an intimidating stage.
You're so brave.
It's not like a little runway.
No.
But the lights are great. So that's going to be like, that's, we love that. But yeah, so 30-year applying, and then they reached back out and voted or whatever, and so I get to do it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited.
So what led you to initially like wanting to do pageants?
That's a good question. So it was honestly, I'd had the babies, I dropped the baby weight, and it was just like I was looking for another way to just achieve, to do more. And so in a way, I'll talk about my book, that's like a trauma response. So it's not necessarily healthy to always like want to achieve and get those accolades, but that's where I was. That's what kind of
not a bad trauma response, to be honest.
Right?
A win is a win. Okay.
I know, it is. I everything I've structured and reframed, and it's all, everything's great. Everything works out for the good. But yeah, so it was like I wanted to challenge myself, and this was something. And the beautiful part is it's something I've always been interested in. I've always grown up watching pageants, but I never felt worthy or that I had the self-esteem to really put myself out there to be judged and to stand on a stage. And I just felt, because I'd lost the baby weight and I'd gained a lot of confidence, like through Orange Theory fitness challenges, to be honest,
love that.
Yeah, I loved it. And it kind of made me confident in my triathlons. It was like the confidence was brewing, and I knew that there was going to be a side of me like that I needed to see through. I just kind of felt like led, drawn, called, like all those like words speak to me to say of what made me that evening in the bed, Google pageants.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's what you asked me. You were like, you went to the Mrs. America system as your first one.
Yeah, you're crazy. Like, you do a little practice pageant. Like, don't start with the biggest one.
I know. And I was like, I just Googled, and it was like the only one that came up. And it was, the director called me the next day, and it was 3 weeks away.
Wow.
And so my husband, poor guy, he's just like, he never heard me ever talk about a pageant. And then so I go from never talking about a pageant to overnight being like, because she talked me into doing it. Because I was like, I think I need to hire a coach and like, next year I'll compete. She was like, no, you have a shot.
Wow.
I'm telling you have a shot. I wouldn't be, whatever. There's 2 winners, whatever. You get to go to Vegas, all this stuff. So it made me feel a little confident knowing that there could be 2, you know? So it's like, well, my odds are a little higher.
Yeah.
So I tell him, hey, so by the way, there's this pageant and it's in 3 weeks and I want to do it. And he's just like, okay. So he just kind of learned with me now to just kind of go with whatever.
Is he traumatized or is he still supportive?
He's supportive. Let's just say that he's supportive. He doesn't like, he doesn't like me to pick myself apart. And let's just be honest, when you're putting yourself out there to be judged and you're in a season of it being looks are a part of the package, he wants me to kind of continue my work of healing that part of me that feels like I have to be perfect. And, that kind of brings it out. That's his only qualm with it, I guess you could say.
Oh my God.
Because otherwise he knows it's like a hobby for me. I enjoy it. Like, I mean, I can't do it forever. And it's not like I've been doing it my whole life either. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I feel like we should probably just stop holding back and share your story.
Yeah.
Because like you keep like referring to it and I'm like, we have to let our audience know more about Celia. So tell me about your past. Tell me about your childhood. What were you like growing up?
Okay. So I was that child growing up that never would have thought she would ever be friends with anyone that did drugs, let alone, be an addict one day. Like I won the Dare Essay contest at school. They take my little picture, put it in the paper.
Wow.
Yeah. So you get little prizes. Are you familiar with the Dare program?
Of course.
Okay.
I'm a 90s child.
Yeah. So like that was who I was. I was always, it was a small school, but they knew me to be a leader. Like they would elect me class president. And, I always got the most like academic awards and story writing contests and stuff like that. So I was a smart girl with their head on their shoulders. And then, just like a ton of waves of trauma happened. There was some trauma whenever I was a little child, but I didn't quite remember it. But I don't know if you guys have read The Body Keeps a Score, but there is a book out there, if you're on your wellness and healing journey, that trauma stays with you. And even if it's underneath the surface, like it can manifest in ways that you don't even realize, where it came from. But more trauma happened. And then, from childhood abuse to sexual abuse, all that. And it just became too much for me. And I entered a very dark period of my life. And honestly, like I went through a ton of time and years of thinking like, I'm ashamed of this part of me. And the biggest, because whenever you recover and whenever you're leaving self-sabotaging behaviors, you have to first hold yourself accountable. You're not a victim. You have to focus on that. But the final stage in my healing personally is to have that self-acceptance and that forgiveness and realize, hey, I was doing the best I could. Like I was finding peace the only way I knew how. And thank you, little Celia, for keeping me here on this earth. You know what I mean? I found peace with a group of friends, and it just so happened that we, I was exposed to pot like most teenagers are. Didn't the president like a couple of years ago say, like even he said, like, take a poll. Like it's not the craziest thing in the world, but as more trauma, this was before I started dabbling in that. And then, I was exposed to or around cocaine, and I tried it for the first time, and it scared me to death because I felt the most peace I'd ever felt. Yeah. Oh, no. And I knew I came home and wrote in my diary about how terrified I was of it. And I didn't do it for like 6 more months. But then the boyfriend I had at the time, who was abusive, that's part of my story too. I've stayed in abusive relationships. One time it almost like made me lose my life. It was that intense. So I understand women, why they get in those situations, why they stay there. Because I was a young girl that was like that. But
how old were you?
17, whenever that boyfriend was abusive, my first abusive relationship. And then the time that it almost made me lose my life, I was 21. Wow. So
the same guy or a different guy?
Different guy.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so the 17-year-old version with the boyfriend and the breaking up for my 18th birthday, I finally was just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be rebellious. And it sucked me in, and I take full responsibility. But I know that it is because I'm so driven. And I say this, and it's quoted a lot by me saying that people that are addicts, if they just found something positive to channel their energy towards, they could be phenomenal, because
Yeah.
it's an energy thing. Like, I'm an intense person, so give me something I love and I'm gonna be very passionate about it. And I was passionate about my about doing drugs whenever I was 18 to 20.
Was it to cope with the abuse, or?
Well, looking back, I wouldn't have told you that then. In fact, I didn't even uncover and like call it abuse, because I was brainwashed into thinking it was my fault as a child. But looking back, I never started cutting. I never started using drugs until the sexual abuse happened when I was 15. So I know now that it was all about that, because that trauma makes you feel defective and it makes you feel shame and like it's your fault, and it's not. But I know this is an adult, but I couldn't have told you then. I would have just been like, I'm just having fun.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah.
So when was your moment where you realized that your life was spiraling out of control and that you had to get it together?
So for me, it was pushing my body to the limit of what it couldn't take anymore. There was like a 3-month spell where y'all see me as pageant girl, hair, makeup. We love the glam. We like showers. But there was a 3-month period where I couldn't get out of bed unless a friend would call and say that they were in town with drugs or whatever. And so I would go and do those with my friends. That would be the only thing to get me out of bed. So it was just like this deep, dark depression. And I remember laying in the fetal position in bed, coming down off drugs, and just finally being like, Lord, help me. Like, it was like, if there was a hell, and it wasn't, that's what hell is. It was the darkest I'd ever felt. And I finally just gave in and was like, went back to my faith, which I always had when I was a little girl. But when the trauma happened, I kind of blamed God, as most of us do. And little by little, people were put in my path. I was bartending. There was a man that like came in and brought me The Purpose-Driven Life by Rick Warren. So just things would come. Yeah. I know,
like angels.
Yes, so many angels, so many miracles, so many angels. And then, that was when I was 20. And what's crazy is I'd just gotten completely clean, like cold turkeyed everything, was going to church like all the time, and found community there instead of community with my friends doing drugs and stuff. And then there was this gentleman that I call people gentlemen, but this guy, you're going to be like, he was a monster. He wasn't a gentleman, but he was. I don't believe people are monsters. I believe things that happen to people that make them that way. But there was a man that came in, and that I thought he was attractive, and that ended up being the abusive relationship. We got married.
From church.
No, it was the bar. He was coming in for lunch. He could only walk that far because he was on intensive probation. Red flags. So
my God.
He walked from his parents' business, and we knew each other for 3 weeks, because I was like, I am a rededicated, virgin. I'm sticking to my faith. And he's like, well, then let's just get married. I mean, that's honestly the truth. I don't talk about it word for word in the book, right? But this is a podcast. Let's just be honest. So we got married, and then he was quickly abusive. And I just felt my heart was that I was supposed to stay there forever, because I married him. And
and that's where the religion.
Yeah. And so, and then there was the night that it just got really bad, and he wasn't letting me leave after he had done the abuse that I go over in the book. And I thought like he was another person. When he would drink alcohol, it his demons took over or whatever. It was just a totally different person. He was not in control. He had no recollection of it, but he ended up going to jail for that because it violated his probation. I know.
Gosh.
He went to jail, and that was what actually my husband will be like, Celia, I know your strength. You would have been strong enough to leave him. And I was like, Dane, you've just never seen this side of me. I know he's always seen my potential, and he knows me who I am today.
Especially we're in that situation because it's everything happens so slowly that you don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah. And I said, Dane, I understand women that don't leave, because if it wasn't divine intervention, which
was him going to jail.
Exactly. Then it wouldn't have pulled me apart long enough to hey, I was given a new life, and it didn't make sense to me staying with him anymore over time. So, yeah.
Wow. So you're one of the few women that have the courage to talk about it. But I know there's so many women out there that are still stuck in these abusive relationships that might not even know that they're going through something like that.
Yeah.
What is your message to them?
Well, use your voice. Start with standing up to your husband or your boyfriend. It's going to transform your life if you can just begin using your voice. Start small, start in a journal talking to yourself, speaking your true feelings aloud till you can get to the point where you can speak up to that person. And I know in certain cases, like when you love somebody and it's like, well, that's going to set them off even more. Oh gosh, pray. Yeah. I'm the only thing I can say is you need a miracle. I needed a miracle.
That was a miracle.
Yeah, to get out of it. Because some people were just not strong enough. Like now I wouldn't get in that situation. Like even if there was no Dane, no husband, I'm not going to be, I would see the red flags and I'm whole enough now. But you got to think I had just also quit drugs. And so there's that vacancy, that void from what they were feeling. So this person came in and just like completely like filled it.
Wow.
Yeah, there's so many books on like codependency and like why we would even like find ourselves in that situation. I would say read a bunch of books and start small with like speaking up for yourself. But then like I think of people that have been in like relationships for years and it's just like, because it'd be too hard to leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just gotta pray, and life is hard for some people, right? Like it's just, I'm so lucky to be here. I'm so lucky and I don't know all the answers. I can only share kind of like what worked.
But I think reading books is really important because I think that's how I avoided a lot of abusive relationships, because through reading other people's stories, I knew what to look out for and like the habits that most abusive men would have and to watch out for those. So I'm in a great relationship. I really haven't experienced that much abuse, but through reading, that really helped me to like stay out of those situations. So let's talk about your book, because you wrote a whole book. So is this a good resource? First of all, look at this book. Celia. Is this a good resource for women that might be able to like avoid and learn?
I give at the end of every chapter there's journaling prompts. So, and not just journaling prompts, but exercises that I've used over the years to completely heal and transform my life, as you have heard.
Yeah. How did you go from being a survivor to being the author of your own book?
So that's another divine type thing. I was 25 years old and I had been sober for 5 years. I'd been out of that abusive relationship for like 3.5, 4 years. It was very short-lived. Start to finish, the relationship was like 11 months by the time I got an annulment is what I ended up. The judge granted me an annulment because they perceived that I was deceived into marrying him because I didn't know that he was going to be abusive, and because he was in jail at the time. It all just kind of,
I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm like, so I technically haven't been divorced. It was an adult. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but so I had a lot of trauma from just the drug use, not to mention the childhood stuff, right? When you take drugs or when you get drunk all the time, like that's harmful to your body. You're hurting yourself. You're telling yourself you don't love yourself, like when you do those things. And I was still dealing with a lot of shame. So all this, I'd completely just like cold turkeyed everything, but I never dealt with like what caused me to be there. And I never really healed. I just stopped doing those behaviors and controlled myself in that way. So I had gone to church and these people were trying to be introduced to me, and I have these thoughts forming like, you're not worthy. Like they don't want to meet you. They know you're trashy. Like it's just a common theme until I healed myself after doing those things that I did that do make you feel that way about yourself. So it wasn't wrong. Like it was part of my reality. And I just remember coming home from church feeling afflicted is the word. You can look that word up. Just like being bombarded with like negative feelings about myself, and like, it's like tormented feeling. And I just remember being like, Lord, draw near to me. And I don't know why I said those words or why I felt called.
I saw goosebumps.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to be real. I don't tell the details in this one. I think I tell in the first one. But anyway, I lay my head down, and I don't know why. It was almost like in a yoga position, which I love yoga now. And I didn't do yoga then though, but it was like the praying mantis. I just kind of like went down, and I saw a vision of a scroll, and I didn't know like what that meant. Yeah, this was on a Sunday. I didn't know what that meant, but I was like, okay, that was cool. And 5 days later, and of course I wrote every day, Dear God. It was like my little journal. That's how I titled it, Dear God. And I would like tell about my day, what I was going through, what I was feeling, like how we do when we journal. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden that Friday, it just, something took over me. I you could either say it was Jesus. You could say it was my high self. Are you spiritual? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I feel like you are, because like you're hanging with things I'm saying. So it was something spiritual happened to where the book was written in 3 days. Let's just put it that way. And yeah, the first book, not this one, the first book, Celia's Eyes, was written in 3 days, and it healed me. Those feelings that I felt like in the back of my mind, like whisper, like that darkness left over that 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I feel like not only did it heal you, but it also healed everybody that reads your book.
Yes, for sure. For sure. That first book, it didn't become a bestseller. I didn't have, I wasn't set up like I am now to promote it. I also put 4 lines of fake cocaine on the cover because I wanted to speak to that audience. Wow. And it was hard to like promote that, even though it was true. And I'm like, I've got to stay authentic to me. So now I take that book and I go into treatment centers, women's shelters. I share my story. I give them a copy of that book, because that book is like what they need for where they are. They need a miracle. Wow. They need Jesus. They need that divine intervention. And then as I've evolved, I'm like, I'm a writer. I want to help people, but there's more people than just the people that are there stuck. We're stuck in other ways. Mm-hmm. We may not be doing drugs, but like we may struggle with our self-esteem or being a perfectionist. Yeah. So that's where this book has come in, is kind of to kind of pick up where that one left off over 10 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. And you're working on a 3rd book, right?
So I have written 3 books. The second book, it was called Celia's Saving Grace, and I don't really promote that one at all. It was kind of just like I was continuing, and it was almost like, I'm not ashamed of it, but it was just not the same. It's like Celia, it was continuing to be therapy, but maybe I'm not going to say I shouldn't have published it, because I have no regrets about anything. I'm not going to say, I feel like God uses everything for good, but it's not one that I promote. I'm not ashamed of it, but it's, the publisher had gone out of business, so you can't even like buy it right now. Aww. I still have some copies at home. Yeah. There's a great poem in it that I actually put at the end of this book that I was telling you about. Yes. So it's all usable, but yeah. And then I'm going to write a 4th book, but I haven't started that one yet.
I mean, you're very busy. So on top of all of these books and everything else, you also have $1 million business.
Right. Mortgages.
Well, mortgages.
Multi-million. Excuse me. I don't make multi-millions in a year, but I bring in, last year, it's been a slow, if you guys are in real estate or whatever, or you've even watched the news, the most I've ever done in a year is like 47 million. Of course, my profits aren't that high, but they're, yeah.
And you own your own business?
No, so it's like running a business, because recently I was like bought out. So what happens is they'll recruit you to come to another company, give you a large, basically buying your book of business. They'll give you a large, I negotiated, because I was like, well, I have this pageant coming up. And so we agreed on this number, but now I'm going to be Mrs. Italy. So we're going to have to, I'm going to need some more money to cover it. It was the timing of that.
Brilliant.
Yeah. They're like, so how much money are we talking about? And you don't even want to know. Like, I don't even want to say, because there's ways to do this with sponsors where it's $0. You don't have to have money to do a pageant. But there's just, I don't have the energy to go get the sponsors. I'd rather get more loans and stuff like that. So yeah, I told him, I was like, well, last time I stopped counting at this figure. So we basically I negotiated a lot more just to like get my gowns and stuff covered. But yeah, so they recruit you to like then switch to their company, because you've got all these realtors, you've got all these people, like the phone doesn't stop ringing, and like you just have a different name over yourself. Okay. So I'm technically W-2, but it is my mortgage business. Like it goes with me anywhere I go.
That's amazing. So how did you get into that?
Another kind of like,
you're just a walking miracle.
I was working as a finance manager at a Mercedes dealership.
Wow.
And I had been visualizing, putting the intention out there, that I wanted to have like a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday so I could have the weekends with my husband, because in the car business you have to work on Saturdays and you also work past 5 o'clock. So I was like just gonna be happy with a 9 to 5 bank job. And then this gentleman came in that owned like a real estate company that's like the number one in the Mid-South. Like if I said the name, you would know exactly who I was talking about. Him and his wife did. And I was like, oh, I've always been interested in real estate. I was like, that or mortgages, because I never knew what mortgages like were, like, because I never even had a mortgage. I didn't even know like there was a mortgage loan officer. But I started taking applications from people that did it, and I saw their income, and I was just like, oh, this looks interesting. Like, how do you do this? And he was trying to recruit me, but like I wasn't on board with what they were trying to offer me or whatever. I was like, I was always interested in that real estate. And he was like, oh, we just opened or bought a mortgage company. So in addition to their real estate company, they bought the mortgage company. So anyway, that's how I got going there. And that was in the end of 2018.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what is it like being a woman in probably a male-dominated industry?
It is. How did you know that?
Because everything is.
Okay.
Even beauty is.
That is crazy. There's a certain energy about me that I am like very soft, very feminine, but maybe it's the trauma I'm using to my advantage, but I can be, I don't want to say ruthless, but like, it's totally just fine. I fit right in. Let's just put it that way.
I'm really happy you stand your ground.
Yeah.
Do it for those of us that can't.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. So tell me about your plans for the pageant. How's the preparations going?
Preparation's going really well. I haven't had to walk in heels though in a couple of years. And besides like for evening gown. So this whole swim routine is that's my main focus, is doing a cute swim routine in my 6-inch heels, not falling. You know what I mean? So that's my main focus. I'm practicing probably 20 minutes a day, going to the YMCA. Wow. We've got all the mirrors. So I'm like getting to practice, and I just want to nail it. I just want to bring my very best. And it's my husband kids with me. He's like, it's all about beating yourself. And he was like, you could get last place and you're still going to win. So because where I was in 2021 is just not where I am now.
Wow. No, I can see that. You're just like a winner. Like I'm just looking at Mrs. World right now. Like you've already become her. Go claim your crown.
Let's embody her at the very least.
I love that. So what are some drastic changes that you've made in pageant prep from 2021 to now?
So I would say it was like the first year it was about the look. Like I didn't even know how to contour my face. Like I didn't even know that was a thing. So there was outfits and like kind of like being a little bit more polished on the outside.
Yeah.
And learning all that. Not that I do it myself, but it's like I know that it needs to be done.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then it was like the next year, especially competing in a system where it's so platform driven, where you talk about it on stage, it was learning how to speak out loud on stages, not get emotional. That led me to doing the TEDx. So that was preparation. Like these things, it's all
Tell me about that.
That was awesome. I loved it. I honestly, like after pageants, I would like to do a TEDx talk once a year, because I'll fly in one of my fly you in or somebody to do my hair. That's the only regret I have, is not having a hair and makeup artist for it. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. But yeah, I would do that like once a year, because it was an 18-minute long talk. I talked for 18 minutes.
Wow.
And I enjoyed it. So basically I took a lot of things that I had from my book proposal that I was going to try to pitch to get like a book deal, which I never got that. That's something in the future I still have to get. Yeah.
Well, they're missing out.
I know. I self-published this. Wow. So I did it all myself. Besides, I hired somebody to do like the layout design, but I had hired a photographer. She took the photo. But anyway, the main difference that I'm doing, I did a lot of, it's like every year it was something I had to tackle. The last thing that I had to tackle, and I did it before my pageant in July, was being drilled with like interview questions. That brought up emotions, because I was like, I didn't realize how bad I was at this. I didn't know I was bad. But then when I was like, somebody was drilling me, and it was my friend that's been in the Army for like 20 years, and she's just like, she will win interview every time.
Oh my God.
I was like, and she was like, it's okay. It's okay. I was like, I don't know where these emotions are coming from. But my husband was like, this is fine. This is why it came. And so I may say he might have problems with some parts of my experience with pageantry, but he's the most supportive person. And he's like all about me doing my best. Cause he's like, tell me, Celia, he has to talk me down. He's like, Celia, your first year, like, you know, yes, we had to focus on the look. He was like, it makes sense that now interview has come last because you put all the other things together, and interview is going to be the easiest for you to figure out because you talk to people all day and you're great at talking to people.
You're like, in interview right now. Yeah. You're doing amazing.
Thank you. He's like, so it's going to be fun. So yeah, that was right now. The biggest thing is the walk is just trying to get that right. Cause that does not come naturally, but seeing the difference. I have videos of me in 2021 walking on stage at the Westgate in Las Vegas. And then I have recorded myself walking now, and I'm like, it's completely different, like in a good way.
So you have it all. I feel like you've accomplished everything. How do you stay motivated, and what's next for you?
Goals motivate me. Like I have to have a goal to get out of bed. It's not easy getting out of bed for me. I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, let's tackle our day. So just keeping goals, like, you know, that's why pageantry is so great, because it gives you a goal to, like, you know, stay motivated. Definitely. To count your macros, to work out. Well, I'm going to always work out for my mental health. Like, that's never going to change. But necessarily, you know, counting my macros and being as strict with them, that kind of is a little more lax whenever I'm not about to be in a swimsuit on a stage.
So after winning Mrs. World,
okay,
what's your next goal?
Oh, gosh.
Because you have it all.
I want to write another book, but if I were to win Mrs. World, I probably would not. That it wouldn't be on my agenda to do that next year. It's probably like, if I don't win, I'm going to pour myself into that. If I do win, I mean, I would love to continue the work that I do through my nonprofit. It's kind of taken a pause the past couple of months since I've been Mrs. Italy, but where I go to different women's shelters and treatment centers. And I feel like it does so much for them, but I feel like it really helps all women see that, hey, like, transformation's possible. And, you know, I hope that it's empowering to others, because I know it's empowering to those women and those who really have a heart for, if you can imagine, because I was them. And I feel like it's your moral obligation, if you've overcome something and pulled yourself out, or divinely been pulled out, well, maybe God pulled you out so you could go back and help them. So I would love because when you win a title like Mrs. World, you will technically be working for them. So I haven't talked to them about, hey, when I win Mrs. World, but I would hope that they would allow that to be on brand with what they do, for me to go, because I get in school. I've gone to schools. So I could go back to the schools, like, not just as Celia, but as Mrs. World, do all, you know, the things where I just talk and, like, uplift people and just tell them my story and stuff. I mean, it's so simple, but we'll do that.
Such a big difference.
Okay, I hope so.
I love that. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience before we get into our this or that?
I just I love y'all. Thank you for watching. I'm the most approachable person, I promise.
You really are. Okay, so here we go. Okay. First question is, platform heels or sandal heels?
Platform heels.
Love that. You're a true pageant girl.
I think I always was. Deep down, I look back and I'm like, yep, this was always me.
Yeah. How tall are you?
5'6" 3/4", in all honesty, barefoot.
You made every inch count.
But I'm also not going to lie, because, you know, I'm real.
Yeah. But that's pretty tall. You're lucky.
Yeah, and I'm real tall in those 6-inch heels.
Love that. Hair or makeup?
Hair.
Okay.
The reason why is because I feel like you could take a homeless person but put them in like a French twist, like a very polished thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's the look.
Yeah. Yeah. But like hair, you could do my whole face, but like you did my whole face, but my hair was like poofy because it was like dried straight, and you come in and my hair is like super like coarse, but it curls really well. Yeah. But that, I can't go out like that, even with that face, but right? But if you had the beautiful soft hair and everything, and it was all polished, like it wouldn't matter. Oh yeah. So I have a reason.
Shopping online or in person?
Online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save time.
I know that I've seen your shows. I understand people that are really into styling why they would want to do it in person, but I'm very much just like, tell me what to wear. And I like to just like buy it. And usually 9 times out of 10, I like whatever I order. So it's never really failed me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Reels or TikTok?
Reels, because I guess I'm older, like in TikTok for young.
TikTok is getting weird for me.
Yeah.
Like it's like shopping, a lot of shopping, and then like all the videos that I post just flop now. I used to get so many views.
Yeah, I go there for ASMR.
That's so funny.
And the little boys will be like, my 5-year-old boys will be like, "Are you listening to that thing again?" I'm like, "Yes."
Oh my gosh. I go there for news, like the missing girl in Hawaii. I was like, let me get my updates on TikTok.
Yeah.
Crown or sash?
Crown.
Perfect. Swimsuit or gown?
I'm gonna say gown, but I kind of want it to be swimsuit. Like I'm working towards, because swimsuit, your personality can come out. So yeah, I'm stuck on that one. I'm sorry. I'm the worst person to give me this.
I'm gonna say swimsuit because you're shooting in a bikini.
Okay,
today. East Coast or West Coast?
I'm gonna go with West Coast, even though I've only been there one time in my life.
Did you love it? Was it LA?
It was San Francisco, and I didn't love it, but there's something about me drawn there. I need to go there.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to go there. Yeah. Photo shoot or fashion show?
I'm going to say photo shoot because you get the full glam, and you don't always get that in a fashion show, which we talked about.
You don't have to worry about falling.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that is it, Celia.
Awesome.
So tell our audience where we can buy your book and where we can follow you on social media.
Awesome. So at Love Waits For You is my Instagram, and the book, all you have to do now, because my SEO is up, you just Google "You Are a Queen," and this book will be the first book that comes up, or the first, I think, actual article, anything that comes up. "You're a Queen, Transform Your Pain into Power." I do get more proceeds if you buy it on Amazon, but I will tell you, until the end of the year, or maybe even extended if this podcast airs after the end of the year, I have the ebook for like 99 cents.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I want to do that just so it's like people don't have an excuse not to buy it, and they just get it in their hands. And that you can just download the Kindle app, even if you don't have a Kindle, and then purchase it from Amazon for 99 cents.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Celia.
Thank you for the great conversation.